I hope you are energized. Let's get started. Okay, we are drowning in information but starved for knowledge. How many of you resonate with this quote? Can I have a show of hands? Do you feel there's a data everywhere but little insights? Quite many. Okay, this is a quote from a book, Mega Trends, which was published in 1982, almost 4 decades back. And this book talked about the future projections and the trends that will be coming in, which will be impacting business and society. I find it so hard to believe that something which was said so long back is even more relevant today, isn't it? And this is so relevant that even a study which was recently done says the same thing. So in the study, what it came out that 84% of the organizations which are running business want to become a data-driven, and then for the same purpose, they are also investing heavily in data and analytics. But despite this heavy investment, they are struggling to achieve any value out of these investments because of the struggles in people, process, culture. So the point to note is, it's not the tech which is bothering them to become data-driven. It's something else. How they are modeled, what are the cultures in the organization, and what are the policies. So those are the areas where they most struggle with.
So thanks. So yes, Manisha, so this numbers look scary. So do you know why this happened?
So why data strategy is not actually effective? There are many reasons behind it. These numbers, why the ROI is very, very low on the huge investments when the markets are so shaky, there are reasons behind it. So let's get understand of these reasons. The one is when data strategy is supposed to be devised, how it happens. Suppose a group of executive leadership meeting is happening and there are certain questions are thrown around. That's what I have seen based on experience. Normally, what I see, people come across in those meetings, they have their business acumen, but they ask around why we are discussing data strategy here. Is this not an IT thing? Why here? We should delegate it. Or they come across, yes, I do understand there is value in doing data strategy, I get all that, but it's too much to be done. Let's do it later, because there is a fear to change, and they are resistant to do that change. They look at that change not as something which will yield some fruitful value, but they look at that change which will be causing disruption. So somehow there's a missing data literacy, or it is very weak if it is even there. And some people are even much against it. They feel it's of no use, it's not a real thing. So these are the kind of sentiments I've come across, and that's where the downfall, the struggles begins, and the strategy starts becoming more and more ineffective in the implementation phase. Because if it is not created with the right mindset and right approach, then even the execution will be flaky. Okay, so now let's take a deeper dive. So when businesses decide, okay, then they delegate, the strategy should be devised by the IT, and the IT being IT, they know tech very, very good. But they don't understand the business. What are the objectives? What we are trying to solve? Whom it will help? Whom it will not help? What should be taken care in terms of compliance and other requirements? And what things can go wrong if we just make up something? So when a data strategy is proven to be ineffective or incompetent, it breeds more and more chaos on the ground. If businesses continue to function the same way, because they are they don't want to change, because they want to continue with the comfortable zone in which they have been doing things, they are not adaptive, and that's what they want to be, in the comfort zone, then the strategy would further come on to the teams, and the teams will also continue to function in the same way, and hence the system design will also continue to function in the same way. Okay, so when this happens, nothing changes on the ground. So that's business as usual. Whatever is happening, continue to happen, and the struggles also remain same. Let's consider the supply chain industry. In supply chain, what I have seen, there are many domains of data which are needed for certain day-to-day functioning, transactions happening. Around procurement, planning, production, logistics, because that's how supply chain is all about. So all this day-to-day data is easily managed in the operational world. I can say they have nailed it. Everywhere operation world, they have nailed it. But when it comes to analytics, they just throw those data sets over a wall to the another world, which is the analytical world. And when the data is thrown across the wall, then it loses the context. The people on the other side of the wall who are working on the analytical plane, they are unable to make any sense out of it. Then if they are not able to make any sense out of it, how can they make any relevant insights out of it? And that's what usually happens. People build platforms for operational world, for data platforms, AI, ML platforms, and those supply chain use cases, which are very, very effective they want to build upon to get the insights. Let's say the supply chain use case, they want to come across what should be the pace of my production so that I don't run out of stock because they're doing demand forecasting. And to come to know what should be my pace of production, it should be slowed down or it should be picked up, they need certain data. And on the other side of the world, people get the data, but they don't see anything how to get those insights. They struggle there, and then the data comes across as hard to find, and it is siloed, duplicated, redundant, and then there is no trust factor associated. Because people just know there are ETL bunch of pipelines running, data is coming in, but is it fresh? Is it from last week? Is it from last year? Because on operational store side, things change quite often. But once it is an analytical store, what is happening? No one knows. And then over a period of time, this system or this way of working can still be survived. But as the things become more and more complex and the scale also increases, this way of throwing over the data over the wall and managing two different worlds independently cannot sustain. So this is the primary challenge when an ineffective data strategy is carved out, and on execution, on the ground, the challenges reflect in the long run. So it's not like that if you're creating an ineffective data strategy, it is not going to give any benefit. That means it will not have any negative impact. It will. If I say a well-crafted data strategy is a recipe for success, if you miss any particular specific ingredient in that recipe, your outcomes, which is your data insights you are looking at, you are hoping for, will be unsatisfying, will be half-baked, and will be unappreciated. So when you devise any strategy which is incompetent, be it devised by the IT org or be it devised by the business because they don't have that strategic alignment or data literacy in the business side, or IT doesn't have business acumen, and it come across and then it just starts, the implementation begins, the effects can be very adverse. It can affect your profits, your customer base. It can also affect your market position and many more things. And then business starts struggling. We are investing, we are not able to justify the outcomes. This is so much cost we have. This is so much cost we are incurring. We want to reduce these costs because everyone is running their own mini platform in data, in AI, ML, and on operational side. There are so many silos. And then the cost starts going up, and they are unable to justify those investments. Where is the ROI? And then this struggle, like a domino effect, it goes down everywhere. They can't articulate value. There is little trust in the data, as I was saying, and then many more. Over a period of time, this has become very, very prominent because one way to look at it is a negative impact is your positioning in the market, the brand you hold. It can also be impacted if your data strategy is flawed in terms of compliance especially, because it adds, if it doesn't help you, it adds the risk. If your data is left insecure, not so secure manner, if it is not helping you with the compliance, because many a times governance is a key in the data strategy, and that's where most of the organizations struggle, how to secure your data, how to make sure the privacy is protected. It's there. It's a privacy-first design. And then many more things. Recently, in fact, as early as yesterday, there was a fine around compliance because organizations are paying huge money for being in violation of these compliances. And yeah, I think yesterday, if it was not yet, I think yesterday, the Meta announced that this year, their earnings, and then within those earnings and all those numbers, I came across this year cost is going to be $2 billion high because they were in violation of a European Federation board, and then their compliance, they were moving data across regions, US, UK, and then that came out as a hefty fine of roughly $1.2 billion, 1.2 billion euros to be precise. And that is now they're increasing the cost because this is so much fine, and a lot of fees is going towards handling those legal matters, which could have been avoided very, very easily. So that means it is so crucial to make sure your data strategy is effective, it can perform, and it can give you the desired outcomes. Businesses are understanding its importance, but they are struggling. They find it daunting. Okay, now we know there's a price to be paid if your data strategy is ineffective or it is skipped altogether. Now we want to focus on how we can create a good, potentially winnable data strategy. I pass on to Nikhil.
Okay, so thanks, Manisha. So we are going to define the guiding pillars of our winning data strategy. So basically, the business ambitions, opportunities, and intentions need to be aligned with the data strategy. So we'll take an example. So for example, if we talk about a retail e-commerce platform like Amazon or Lazada, so they want to increase their sales, let's say, by 20% in the next 6 months. So how it is mapped to the opportunity is that they can upscale or cross-scale to their customers. And what is the intention? The intention is to basically increase their market share. So how does this translate into a strategic planning, or the use case is that they need to propose a product recommendation engine. So this product recommendation engine will be using the customer transactional data to recommend the products, or it can also use the product correlation data to recommend the products. So for example, if a customer is buying a toothbrush, so this recommendation engine can basically recommend toothpaste so that the customer can buy both these products together. So this is how they can increase their sale for it. So successful data strategy need to be lean, it need to be adaptive and evolutionary. So the second pillar that we have it is more about the formulation of the new ways of working that we have it. So we already talked about the different data that we need for the product recommendation engine. So we need this product data, the customer data, the product correlation data, and also the transactional data or the order data that we have it. So all this data need to be considered or treated as a product, so that we can inherit its intrinsic value and apply the principles of a successful product development and management to the and bring it to the data world. So then once this data product is defined, then we can make and define the owners for these data products. So for example, the products and the product correlation data can be owned by the product domain team. The customer data can be owned by the customer relationship management team. And then once this ownership is defined, we need to define the responsibilities for this domain teams. So we define these roles and responsibilities for these domain teams. How do they manage the life cycle of this data products? So once that is done, then we are also need to ensure that we have a good data culture in the organization. So for example, how do we maintain or how do we bring the trustworthiness to this data? So by ensuring that we have a good quality metrics built into the system, we can have a good and trustworthy data that is available for the product recommendation engine. So the third pillar that we have it is more about the architecture, data, products, and platform. So we already discussed about the different products. So basically, we are supposed to build a self-service data platform, which enables the different domain teams, like product domain teams, the CRM team, to onboard their data products using this self-service data platform. Then we also need to register these products data to the centralized data catalog so that this data becomes discoverable and can be accessed, so that we can reuse these data products across the organization, and there's no silos here. Then there's also, we need to organize this data in such a way that it facilitates the seamless flow of the data across systems and applications. So we talk about that we have this customer data, right? So we also need to bring in the data security measures to ensure that the sensitive data is protected and there's no data breach that is happening here. So
Data mesh. I was just about to ask Nikhil. We know these are the practices or these are the pillars for a good winnable data strategy, but what about our capabilities? Is there any framework we can deploy? And I think Nikhil wants to talk about data mesh.
yeah, so we basically discuss about the 3 pillars that we have. The first pillar is more about the alignment of the business outcome. The second pillar is the formulation of the new way of working. The third pillar is the defining the architecture for the data and the data platform. So data mesh is a framework or it's a paradigm that utilizes these pillars to implement a successful data strategy. So basically, how many of you knows about the data mesh? Have heard about the data mesh? Can you raise your hands? Okay, so quite a low number actually. So how many have implemented the data mesh in the organization? Okay, I think
that's a good
few
number.
of them. Okay, cool. So data mesh is basically based on the 4 principles. So it's basically domain ownership, data as a product, self-service data platform, and federated computational governance. So we are going to dissect this a bit more in the further slides. So we're going to talk about the client story where we have successfully implemented the data mesh framework. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background of this client. So it's a healthcare organization that operates worldwide under 2 divisions, which are pharmaceuticals and the diagnostics. So basically, what was happening on the client side is that so it's quite a big organization, which is spread across 100+ countries, and they were having like 4 IT organizations. So what was happening was that if there are certain teams that need this data, there was no centralized way of identifying if this data exists or not. So which ended up these teams to bring their own or make their own data platform from scratch and onboard these products or onboard this data to it actually. So which leads to duplication and also silos between the teams. The other challenge that they have it is that because there were multiple data projects that were running, there was a lack of visibility that they have to map the values that they can derive from these projects and map it to the corporate strategy or the business strategy that they are having. So we were asked to enhance the supply chain visibility for this organization to optimize this supply chain visibility for them. So Manisha, we already discussed about the data mesh. So can you please put some light on how this was implemented in the client side?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's move to the implementation part, how for this particular use case or the client story, how we implemented data mesh and which way it helped carving out a strategy that was competent. It could also work not just on tech, but also on the operating model, taking care of people, process, culture, data ownership, data governance, and whatnot, all those things besides tech, because those are the real reasons for failures in data, being data-driven. Before I talk about it, I have a question. Have you ever wondered in this pharma world, dead stock, there's a concept of dead stock when medicines are expired, they can't be consumed, they can't be sold, what happens to those? This dead stock, have you ever wondered? Okay, they are incinerated, yes, you are right, they are burned. But think from a pharma company who is actually manufacturing those so much volume, because from their business perspective, it's a huge blow to them, because it's an effort and time waste in getting all those products back and follow a certain set mechanism to incinerate. It's not an easy thing to do. It's like a reverse supply chain its own. At only some valid or recognized sites you can do this, and it's business value-wise also, it's a lot of effort. The time and the money spent on creating and then delivering logistics and getting them back and storing them, paying rents, it's a lot of effort and time being going wasted. A lot of raw material also not helping anyone. For any pharma company or any pharma client, it would be very, very crucial to maintain a balance, to avoid this dead stock situation, to minimize it as much as possible. And that's where this pain point lied, this supply chain visibility. Why? Because to actually reduce this potential dead stock, the key is to balance. We don't want to stock out because we want to meet the demands. That's how we make profits. And also, we don't want to overstock. That means there's a high chance we will be into a dead stock situation and we'll be burning money, right? So this is the balancing thing. And that's where the requirement is, okay, give me a dead stock analyzer, which can at least intimate me in the very beginning, and then maybe I can slow down the production, or maybe distribute those stock from one distributor to another distributor, from one warehouse in one region to another region altogether, because these pharma companies work across and supplies those products across so many regions. And these disruptions, like demands, is sometimes very, very fluctuating, flaky, due to many reasons. Again, pandemic, lockdown, or some civil conflicts, and much more. Due to many reasons, the supply chain gets broken, and then demand and supply, demand gets shot down or up, and they want to balance it out, because ultimately the idea is to get those visibility. What is the forecast? What is my inventory right now? In which particular region? What is the inventory which is in transit? That means it is in the production state. The raw material has already been procured, and now the production is going on. I'll be getting in next week or 10 days. So this is all about the supply chain visibility, why it was picked up as a key use case to be focused upon, because ultimately it's like burning money. Okay, now coming back to the data mesh, how it helped solve that problem, how we started this data strategy craft journey with the client. Okay, we started with a workshop where because we were clueless in the beginning. What is this domain? What we want to do? We understood their vision. Because vision drives so many things. Everything has to be business aligned. We just saw this, right? So their vision was to minimize those risks and increase the profit, in this sense that there is less wastage of human efforts and those systems, and that we tried to map those vision to the prioritization. That's where supply chain came out to be the prominent ones. After we did this basic understanding, we went into a discovery phase where we ran 3 parallel streams. It's not just the tech stream we focus upon, although we are pure, I would say, much of the techie, but we ran 3 streams: product stream, operating model stream, and tech stream. So let's take a look at one by one. Operating model stream. So operating model usually means, as we were saying, it's how the data culture is, how the teams are structured, what are their roles and responsibilities, is there a notion of clearly defined data ownership principles being followed or not, and are the teams capable enough to make decisions? Are they autonomous? Do they know what they're working upon, and how things are how to interact or collaborate with other teams, how to get it done as early as possible? So many things comes across in the operating model. And the data culture being, are they taking decisions backed by data or just going by the intuition or some assumption? So many things come across in the operating model. So we started understanding from the lean value tree, what are their goals, what is the hierarchy, how we are going to change it. Is it maybe the change is not required at all? So what is the current state where we want to be? And parallelly, in the product stream, we were doing a lot of things. Okay, this is the use case, supply chain, which we understood from their vision. Now, what data is required to support this use case? So this was the product stream. And in data mesh, as we discussed, there's a data product. Treat data as your product. Product means something which delights the customer. Treat data as a product, so someone who uses it, be it a consumer, be it an app, is a human or tool, whatever, they're happy when they're using it. They're not frustrated because it's so difficult to use. It's not of any value. So we started prioritizing those data products required to actually analyze that dead stock, right? Which was the prioritized use case in the supply chain world. And then we also thought of, okay, this is something we want to build, but what will be the source? We also need some source data products to come up with a final derived or aggregated data products that tells you, okay, this is going to be the potentially dead stock, and how do you balance just alert on top of it. So those data products, their interdependency, how they will be combined together and curating a new data product, which will be helping us understand the dead stock available across the regions, so many regions, and how we can maybe potentially shuffle it or transfer from one region to another, one inventory house or warehouse to another, and then save money, right? So these data products were identified, and also we did one more thing, SLO. SLO is service level objectives. So when I say, okay, this is the data product which will help you identify if something is if something is going stale, okay, that means if I'm making a promise, a data product is going to make a promise that it will tell you every 10 seconds or every 2 minutes it's going to refresh if something is going in that danger zone, right? That something is going to be very, very out of use soon if it is not sold, out of any use, right? So SLO helps to measure those guarantees if it will be available. The data product which we are going to build, that it will be refreshing the data every 2 minutes. So that is one SLO, how we measure those guarantees, because it adds on building the trust, which we are talking about. There is no trust in data. Similarly, there can be many SLOs around freshness, as I said, about availability, about completeness, about error rate, about accuracy. And then we keep an eye on these metrics or these guarantees which we are promising. This is not something on paper. We also need to measure those, okay? In terms of average, in last 10 days, 100% of the time, the data was refreshed every 2 minutes. Or maybe in last 2 weeks, the data was available 99% of the time. This gives clear picture to the end users, whosoever is coming to use that data product. Yes, I can use it because there are so and so information attached. I know those answers, if it is going to help me or not, if it is trustworthy or not. This helps to build trust. This is one way. There are many more things we can add on later. The other stream, the tech stream, I think many organizations have already invested in some form of data warehouses, data lakes, data platforms, and so many other things. So when we went into the discovery phase, we also spent time on understanding what is the as a state. Does it help with the self-serve which we want to build? What can be reused and what cannot be reused? All these findings were put together after this discovery phase in a document, and then we started the build phase. So we aligned on them. This way, the hidden benefit is you can evolve or you can adjust, because we are working on incrementally on one data product at a time. And later on, something is not working or we are not making heavy investments or heavy changes or not going full big bang. You can always come back and change few things here and there if something is not working for that particular use case, because this is the use case which is going to give most value. So this is the approach how to get started, how we got started in this pharma use case. Okay. Having spoken about that operating model a lot, I would still have something more to add here. Okay, so this is a blueprint, I would say. This is not exactly what we did. This is a blueprint or abstracted form, because Conway says, okay, the teams will be, and how the teams operate will be reflected into your architecture or system design, correct? So let's look at this blueprint of the operating model, how data mesh suggests to build on it. This is what we've done. So on the bottom, we have a self-serve platform. So this is self-serve platform which abstracts all the complexities. We are not saying you build 10 platforms for AI, ML, data separate. Just one self-serve platform which we followed, and then it yielded the results. When we say it abstracts complexity, anything related to storage, anything related to compute, anything related to guidance around the governance, policies, access control, data catalog, everything is abstracted. And it is easy to use. It is making other developers or the other data products which will be onboarded, that onboarding is helping making that onboarding smooth. So this data platform or self-serve platform is actually more than what we used to think about a data platform. It's not just that. It is a self-serve. It holds so many. It provides you the capability, and it is managed by a platform team. On top of this platform, various domains can come and sit. Coming back to again supply chain. Here, the domains could be what? Sales, marketing, R&D happens a lot. R&D could be one domain, and then stock would be one of the data product within that sales domain, right? Where is what inventory and all that. So different domains, whenever they are prioritized, can come and start using the self-serve platform to be onboarded, to be giving value. And this domain is a business domain. So that means the owner for this domain is a business domain owner who understands the data, who understands and translates the business language to the technical language for the people or the teams who will be working on that. And one domain can have multiple data products. It can have just one. It can have more than one. A data product is another unit. It tells you how to gather the data, and it is built by a data product developer team. They try to use those abstractions or the APIs around storage, compute, and catalog, access control from the self-serve platform. That's where the speed comes in, because most of the platforms struggle with speed when the complexity increases. Next is operational and analytical plane. As earlier I was calling out, these two worlds are working in silos. With this design or this approach, these both planes are just consumers of the data being served from data products. So we are not making any difference in how we serve the data. It can be used for anything, back to the operational systems for making some recommendations, or back for reporting, for some analytics. And the corresponding teams work on it. They can even merge or aggregate multiple data products and create new data products which are not base level, which are much more complex and much more, they are aligned to their requirements on the consumption side. Across the board sits a governance model, governance board, which takes care of all the policies and the nitty-gritties. So this is a blueprint. As you can see, the architecture and the teams, they go hand in hand. There's a clear distinction who does what. Next, I'm just zooming into this a bit. Okay, so the same thing which I was saying, the funda is we centralize the infrastructure as much as possible, and we decentralize the ownership. That's the concept we are trying to follow here, because this helps to deliver as soon as possible. You can implement the bare bones one time, and then the domains or the data products will be leveraging them. Coming back to the dead stock use case, which was implemented using this design or approach, in domain, we had data from SAP, Salesforce, other sources, and then data was coming in, and we tried on the, you see those hexagons, those represent data products. There are source data products, there are intermediate data products, okay, the data from certain inventory, certain warehouses, the location and all, they are combined, and that ultimately projects, okay, this is the dead stock towards the end. So there can be, it's just 3 layers, it can be many more than that. So this is how the approach we took. Finally, when we did this work, the work this way, it came across blurring those boundaries or that invisible wall, which we were seeing in these two worlds, right? You don't see that wall in between. So data flows seamlessly from operational plane to the analytical plane, and when it flows seamlessly, why? Because there is a common, just one platform, which is self-serve, which hosts all the domains, and the data is in those domains. We are not thinking of data pipeline, we are thinking of data domains, which is aligned to the business domains. So when this approach was followed, the challenge around speed and the scale, the complexity, with complexity it's difficult to achieve value, that challenge was actually vanishing, and the data was finally like findable and accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So there were no silos. That's how it, over the period of time with complexity also it sustained, and we were able to deliver what we promised. Okay, so this is the impact. Nikhil, would you help me with those, what were the impacts achieved?
Okay, so the benefits that we get from implementing the data mesh in the organization can be translated into the cost benefits and the operational efficiencies. So by building a self-service data platform, we were able to build data products quickly by using the self-service data platform. So because of that, there was a reduction in the manual work that needed to be done, and there was also reduction in the data preparation cost that is involved while onboarding the data onto the platform. Then, because we already have this data quality built in as part of the self-service platform. So it allows us to define the data quality metrics and collect them on a regular basis, which makes this data trustworthy and align with the compliance.
Okay. So now we know data strategy is important, and data mesh is a paradigm that supports solving all the challenges which comes across in the most prominent data strategies. So these are the questions I would want you to look at, because if you are a data strategist, or if you are someone who want to make your business a data-driven business, you need to start somewhere, and you need to think around certain questions which should be think through before you spend any time and effort in actually going ahead with that change. I'll just quickly skim through these questions. So first, ask the business and the stakeholders if you have the blessing, if you have the buy-in from and the sponsorship for them. If not, find an advocate who supports this change, because not everyone wants or invest into building a data strategy because people lack data literacy. Especially when we say data mesh, there is a notion, okay, this is an org change, we can't, this is a disruption. So check out for that appetite. What is the appetite to that change on the operating model side? Because this, more than tech, this is perceived as a biggest challenge. If that is the challenge, my suggestion would be to look at it, okay, don't go big bang, don't go follow a top-down approach, build a bottom-up. You just build thin and lean pieces of a self-serve platform and incrementally build and enhance the platform capabilities while onboarding use case by use case or data product by data product. The other is there will mostly be a data platform or some platform already in place which is existing. Assess it on the maturity. What can be reused or what cannot be reused, because those are the components which are easy to use if it is in existence. Similarly, also assess the data culture, okay, because that is the mindset shift, and the other coaching would come in handy, and the compliance requirements. Because in different industries, the compliance requirements are going to be very, very different. In different region also, it will be very changing. Somewhere in US, it's CCPA, in UK, it's GDPR, here is PDPA. In payments, it's PCI. So many compliance, so many restrictions come in because they are crucial to protect the data. So figure out what we should be focusing on, what all matters. And then the data literacy, how we can improvise it, and the data ownership notion is there or not. So these are some reference points for you to refer in case you want to become a business who is data-driven and you are somehow interested in doing that.
So basically, so in summary, we can say that data mesh is a go-to framework for orchestrating a successful business-first data strategy. So these are the benefits that we have if we use the data mesh. So we will have faster time to insights, break silos, reduce the cost. It also helps us to make the data use for the data monetization and innovation. It also helps us to enhance the trust in the data. So basically, we are talking about data mesh, and there's a lot of buzz around the generative AI, right? So why we are talking about the data mesh here, actually? So generative AI needs a lot of trustworthy and good quality data for its training, right? So data mesh is the paradigm that can be used to build this data platform which have this trustworthy and good quality data that can be fed to the generative AI for this training, right? So that is why we are discussing about the data mesh approach today. Thank you.